Hey guys, Buckeye Bar guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Tonight's date is Sunday, July 17th, and we are inching closer and closer to the start of the season. That's coming up on September 3rd against Notre Dame. We'll be starting our countdown. I'll be starting the countdown at a point this week, probably early week. I just got to get my my days figured out, how many actual days we are, so I can start picking jerseys. So we got that. Season's rolling really fast. Tonight we got a little bit of a fun episode. We were just on we got off vacation, which we were talking about on the last time we talked to you guys, that we were getting ready to go on a big fishing trip. So we're actually going to talk a little bit about it, some unsolicited pub for the lodge we stayed at, because it was amazing. So anybody that definitely is into fishing, and I'm sure we have quite a few people that like the outdoor lifestyle of fishing, hunting, whatever. But this, for fishing specific, this was a pretty awesome trip. So we'll get into that here in a minute, and then we will, after that, we'll start the show with that. We were actually while we're in Canada, we did share the stuff on the social media sites, but the USC UCLA craziness dropped, so we will be discussing that, and then we'll finish up on the show on we had a lot of commitments since the last time we talked till now. I believe we counted just a little bit ago. It seems like we had about 6 commitments. A lot of them we shared over social media, but we'll talk a little bit about just our thoughts on those. Looks like some big time gets they got on the definitely areas of need, some of them. And so looking forward to talking about that. So let's start in. We're going to talk about our vacation, because it was a great time. We stayed up at, so we went to Reindeer Lake, Saskatchewan, which is in, northern Saskatchewan. It's mostly in Saskatchewan with a little bit of part of it in Manitoba. It's a huge lake. I believe it's the 10th or the 11th largest lake in North America. I mean, only the 5 U.S. Canadian Great Lakes, the 2 farther north Canadian Great Lakes, which is Great Bear, Great and Great Slave, which is up in the Northwest Territories. So that's 7 lakes. Another lake that's in northern Saskatchewan, Lake Winnipeg, and there might be one other, I can't remember. But those are the only lakes that are actually bigger than it in North America. So, I mean, this is a huge lake, a lot of fish in it. You got northern pike, lake trout are the 2 main trophy species. We did catch a few walleye. We know there's trophy walleye in there. We just never, we weren't really targeting them. And then there's Arctic grayling, which I've never personally fished for, but I've heard they're a lot of fun. If you get, light like tackle and, some fly fishing, there, a lot of rivers come into this lake. So, that they are, so they're really fun. So those are the 4 main species that are on the lake. Basically, only 3 freaking towns, villages that are on this lake, and 6 fishing lodges. So 10th biggest lake in North America. Not that many people actually live on said lake. Fishing season that far north, I mean, they start
summer months, that's it.
Yeah, summer months, you get a little bit early fall, and that's pretty much it. I mean, the southern portion of the lake, there's a couple lodges down there. They start like pretty much right at like Memorial Day weekend, and then we are actually the furthest north lake. The lodge we stayed at, which is called Reindeer Lake Lodge. It's the furthest north of the lodges on the lake, and there's still, that's only like 2/3 of the way up. There's still like a third of water, still further than that, further north. But for that lodge, for our lodge, they start mid-June, and even this year because it was a late ice off, for that they actually had to push it back. I think a little bit. They didn't get as many people they wanted to start off because there's just not. They ain't allowed to. You can't move around as much up there with as much ice on the open water. Right. But so we were over there 4th of July weekend. Lot of fun. I mean, tons of fun. So I mean, we caught a lot of big fish. I mean, we caught a lot of fish. I mean, we estimated that we easily caught over 200 fish over 4 days. I mean, the last 2 days specifically, I mean, we were between, it was us two and then our dad. I mean, between us two and our dad, I mean, we combined probably around 80 for the last 2 days specifically. So, I mean, that puts us at about 160. And, the first 2 days were a little slower. The first day, it took us a little bit to get used to, what they were biting and what they weren't biting. But by day 2, we were really starting to hit them. And then day 3 and 4 was crazy. So, like, a lot of great fish. I shared some of the pictures of some of our bigger ones on there. But I mean, we had 12 fish between the three of us over 40 inches. John actually got the most of the big. Those are considered trophies, so he got the most trophies. And then I got the longest of them all. I got a 47-inch northern pike, which was an awesome fight. Enjoyed it. And our dad got the fish of the trip. I mean, he pulled in a monster lake trout that was probably in the low 40s of pounds. I mean, we have to guesstimate it by, we didn't have a scale with us, but, based off of the girth and the length, which was 45 inches, it was a fat fish that, we figure it's probably in the low 40s, in comparison to some of the other ones we saw up there. So, great trip overall. Just your initial thoughts, John, on it. I mean, it was a lot of fun getting to spend time with you and Dad, and we all are huge fishermen. We love it. No, not professionals or anything.
No.
I wish we could go a lot more than we do, but life and work get in the way of that. But definitely an enjoyable trip.
No, I mean, I studied a lot for this trip for sure. I watched a lot of YouTube, read a lot of just material on different fishing techniques and northern pike techniques. So definitely leading up to the trip, I became a better fisherman just from trying to learn more. And of course, you got to put everything into practice. So that's not, I got the fish when I was out there, so I was happy with that. Spent a ton of money on tackle. I'll be able to say that, and I really didn't need to. We all bought a bunch of like big, soft plastic swim baits, and just where we were fishing for the pike, it didn't make any sense. I mean, we were fishing in just shallow water with logs and trees everywhere, and as soon as you would cast one of those things, treble would get stuck into the log. So lesson learned for next time.
Yeah.
We learned real quick on day 3 that the spinner bite was happening. So the MEPS number 5 spinner still knocks them out of the ballpark for the northern pike. For people that haven't really done a lot of pike fishing, when that water temperature hits right, just pull out a number 5 and the pike can't resist it. They just go absolutely crazy for that.
And anybody who has fished for for northern pike, spoons, and pretty much for us it was spoons and spinners, and so that was a fun trip. So yeah, a lot of great big fish we caught. I mean, we had 12 over 40, but I mean, we caught more in the 30 to 39 range than we caught below 30, and I would say we caught more in the 34 to 39 range than we even caught in the low 30s. I mean, there were big fish everywhere, and that's what you get when you got a short fishing season. You don't got a lot of people that live on the lake. You don't got a lot of actual fishermen that visit the lake. You have to fly up there. I mean, some of the southern portions you can actually drive up to, but once you have to get to the up where we're at, they had a private airstrip. So I mean, that was a fly-in for us, and there's not a lot. And then when you take into the pandemic and stuff, they basically, our lodge specifically was pretty much closed for 2 years, and some of the other lodges were basically the same thing. They got, I think a couple of the lodges were able to get some fishermen in at like right at the end of last year when they reopened the borders and stuff. heading into Canada. But I mean, it's basically has not been fished, in 2 years, this lake. And so it was just like, it was bonkers, just how they were biting. So yeah, a lot of fun with the fishing. Now onto the lodge. Like we said, it was Reindeer Lake Lodge, and up there. I think it's reindeerlakelodge.ca is the website. I'll put it in the notes, here, that anybody on, whether you're on YouTube or on listening on the audio versions, you should be able to find it in our notes. But I mean, just great hospitality. I mean, the owners, Dave and Wanda, are just absolutely fabulous. Just you're treated like pretty much gods up there. They treated you perfectly. We had two, since we had two boats, so two in one boat, one in the other boat. We got a guide for each boat, so guides come with the fishing. So shout out to Robert and Frankie. Robert's the head guide of the lodge, and Frankie was his brother-in-law and one of the other guides. I mean, just fabulous guy. I mean, they knew exactly where to go, and and they got us on fish. And if the fish bite wasn't happening in the certain bays and different things, that we were hitting on, they moved us very fast into other bays, and very knowledgeable. They were very up on us, when looking at it, all of our crazy tackle. It's like, nope, try that one right there, that map spinner, or try that spoon. And then it's like, 99% of the time they were right. So it definitely helps having just experienced guides that really know the lake, and they were definitely that. Great food. I mean, we had shore lunch every day. Kept a couple of the smaller fish for shore lunch. So I mean, the guides cooked that for you. That was all and we had walleye, we had pike, and we had lake trout. I know some people get scared away with pike because they have all those bones. People that know how to prepare it properly, pike is delicious, and the lake trout was delicious. I mean, I've had walleye a bunch of times, and I couldn't say that I liked any one better than the other one. So I mean, it was all delicious, and they cook up all the fixings with that. You get fries, and you get beans, and usually a canned vegetable in there, and it was all really good stuff. And then at the lodge itself, you get breakfast and dinner, and Joanne, she was the cook there. I mean, I didn't eat a bad meal all weekend, regardless
No.
of what they cooked. So not only did I get a great fishing, fishing's basically from 8 to 5 with shore lunch in the middle. And yes, you are dead tired by 5 o'clock time rolls around. So you have no problem going in and, enjoying happy hour and then dinner. And so, I mean, just everything was wonderful. So just your last thoughts before we move on.
Oh, I definitely recommend it to anybody that, serious fishermen, freshwater fishermen, like to fish pike. I mean, I've never really gone muskie fishing. So obviously, the temperament of a pike and muskie are much different. You're talking about a pike that, they could bite every cast, than a muskie where you might be lucky to catch more than one in a day. So I mean, completely different. But when you're talking about like real big, real fat pike, this is where they're at. Because pike are long, they're an Esox species, but they're not necessarily always, really thick here in America. Well, a little bit different up there. It's, not pressured water, tons of bait for them. So yeah, I mean, these were, and I got some of this on, GoPro. I didn't, for whatever reason, I don't know why I didn't film the first day. I don't know why I didn't turn it on. I think maybe I was having trouble with my rod or something the first day, and I was kind of like, screw this, it's too hard to try to film this whole thing. But starting on day 2, I did get some GoPro film, some pictures of the fish, of course, that we'll put up there, videos of my dad pulling up the lake trout, Mike getting the 47-inch pike. So there's different things on there that I am going to try to work on to put something on the page. Not sure when I'll have time to, go through all that footage and edit it all down, but you guys can see, and hopefully I got some good footage that you can see just how, long and fat these fish were.
Yeah. So, yep. One just last time, highly recommended if you really want to go up. If you're into that type of fishing, if you love fishing and you're into the freshwater species, these are monsters in northern Saskatchewan, and definitely highly recommended. You know, really the only bad experience that we had with the whole trip is that right now travel is crazy with airlines.
Yeah,
and
travel's just, it's been a bitch for 2 years.
Yeah, so we had we actually had a drive to Toronto because our flight from Cleveland to Toronto was canceled. So to make our flight in Toronto, we had to drive to Toronto, which wasn't bad. I mean, Toronto's only a 5.5 hour drive for us, but so that I mean, it sucked. And then you flew to Saskatchewan, but we ended up being lucky that we ended up driving because on the fly on the trip back home, once we got to Toronto, we found out that our flight from Toronto to Cleveland would also have been canceled. So that was like, thank God we ended up flying or just going to Toronto and changing out all the airline information there to, just begin the trip in Toronto and then end the trip in Toronto coming back. But so that was the only lousy part. And I know several of the people that were, up at the lodge too had similar issues. One had their luggage lost and they didn't get it till like 10 o'clock the night before they actually ended up to the lake. So, I mean, just a lot of headaches right now with travel. But outside of that, I mean, it was just absolutely just a wonderful trip. So, any fishermen in the audience that really love to go on big trips and stuff, I highly recommend it. Again, we'll put it up on the website on the notes. Again, 6 lodges on the lake, but I mean, our lodge was perfect and great people. And if anybody would love the book a trip up there, we highly recommend it and go give them a chance because it was just a lot of fun. So
reach out to us if you need any information more than what we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly. All righty, so let's get into the craziness of expansion. So I believe we've talked about in the past, and other people have talked in the past. In some places, national, local, all this stuff, they've poo-pooed the idea of the super leagues and stuff, and not that they necessarily disagree it, but they thought that it's this is something that's still 10, 15 years down the thing, where we've always kind of felt it's closer. It's just everything with the money that's in the sport and now NIL, it just seems like everything is just like there's just so much boatloads of cash in there and that this was eventually coming. That Texas and Oklahoma was the first really, I mean, even more than the guys that came prior, the Nebraskas and when the SEC did their expansion a few years back with A&M and stuff like that. But it just seems like Oklahoma, Texas was that first shoe to drop, and I'm just like, I mean, it's coming a lot quicker than people think. And USC and UCLA, I was not expecting that. We're up there, first full day up in Saskatchewan. We're getting ready to fly out to the lake the next morning, and it's like, oh my God. And like a blue check mark comes on Twitter. It says this Wilner guy, I can't remember his first name, that sources are saying that USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten, and I'm just like, that's crazy. And I mean, he's got to be wrong somewhere. This is like 2 years. Okay, maybe this is coming, and then it's like Pete Thamel's on Sports Illustrated is agreeing, and Ross Dellinger, that we have got sources now that are saying that this information is correct. Information it could be done by the end of the night.
It was.
And it literally felt like Texas, Oklahoma and all again, because that one came out of nowhere. And by the end of that night, they were, fully into the league and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff around the world, including college sports, can't keep quiet. But somehow these expansions that are, basically decimating other conferences, they can keep this under wraps because there's no way it just started that morning.
Right.
So, your thoughts on that?
Definitely did not think in the year 2022 I would be hearing that UCLA and USC would be joining the Big Ten. So that came as a shock. I mean, at a real solid program with real great history. I mean, UCLA is whatever, that's fine. You get that rivalry for USC. You have a second LA school out there, so that way you're traveling.
You get a good basketball school at the end of the day.
Right.
Good basketball school at the end of the day. And I mean, in the history of the two schools, I mean, they probably are more prestigious when it comes to all the Olympic sports and stuff like that, even though USC's got some good history too. I mean, UCLA's got a lot of national championships and a lot of things. I mean, USC's the big win for football, and like it seems like kind of UCLA's probably like the big win for everything else. So
Yeah. So, but yeah, USC, they're recruiting good. Lincoln Riley's got them going on the right way. So definitely, I mean, it's big news for the Big Ten. They're going to be a good team. They're going to be a real threat, to win Big Ten titles here in a couple of years. So I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be good competition for Ohio State. You and I talked, if they do keep, 3 teams, if they go do away with divisions and you keep 3 teams on your schedule each year, we were hoping USC would be one of them that, Ohio State would keep year in, year out. That would be really fun for Ohio State. Every other year going out to Los Angeles, they have to come in here every other year. So that would be a cool thing. But yeah, I mean, wasn't necessarily expected. Like you said, felt like Texas, Oklahoma. Didn't think you'd see those teams in the Big Ten like that, but there's been rumblings for a while and it happened. So, I think it's only good for the Big Ten. Definitely, it puts a new market in there, new time slot for Big Ten teams to be playing in that, keep fans engaged. People in Los Angeles now have to worry about what's going on in Columbus, Ohio. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I can't wait for them to join the league.
I think, and it's also, I mean, those are the two big schools to hit. I mean, I definitely don't think that they're going to be the last of the Pac-12 schools to come over. We'll get into that in a second. Obviously, Notre Dame is right now the big horse that everybody is after. So I think that's probably the Big Ten. That's probably the next shoe to drop, and I think that that's probably happening, sooner than people think. But USC has a lot of history and stuff like that. But this will be good for if Oregon and Washington end up, Pac-12 football is just kind of forgotten. They got some good teams out there. You just don't remember them that they're out there because they're on later in the day. They're I mean, I love as much as anybody. If I can stay up, and I used to as I was younger. Pac-12 after dark. That was fun. I love the 10:30 at night ESPN game because it's like you've had all the games throughout the day, and that's just the game you get to go relax on the couch and fall asleep till, and that was kind of fun. But now there's going to be, people on the East Coast are actually going to be able to watch. They're going to see more Pac-12 teams in this, and so that's good for them. It's good for their recruiting. It's good for, good for money. It's good for business. I mean, I can only imagine what this next Big Ten deal now will be. I mean, they were talking about, there was rumors that each school was going to get $80 million a year, and it sounds like this deal could already have pushed that to $110 million a year for. So it's definitely a much different look for schools like Indiana and Purdue that are just like, how the heck are we in this group right now that we're making all this money? I don't give a crap if they beat us in football. Like, we're getting boatloads of cash, boatloads of cash, and then you got like schools of comparable, like, strength out there in the West, like the Washington States and the Oregon States and, the Cows that are like, my God, are we going to be able to field, all the sports teams that we're fielding? Because, like, I mean, they're going to lose big time on this deal.
Bloomington, Indiana, Mike, they are the elite of the elite. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, elite. We saw how elite they were this year. Came back down to reality a little bit.
Hopefully they stay down there.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I mean, this is just big news, and it just now both the SEC and the Big Ten they're at 16 apiece. And I know there's a lot of people that are now trying to put the brakes a little bit. Well, we're not at the super conferences yet. It seems like they're the two that are in the driver's seat, into the mega conferences. We're going to wait. Notre Dame's the next big one to drop. Well, Notre Dame's TV deal is up in 2 years. So like, then they're going to be start talking prior to that. And, the Big Ten wants them to join. No, I think Notre Dame is, they're now in a spot where they're kind of between a rock and a hard place on this. If you know, I know sometimes they talk the big talk that we're okay without competing for championships and we don't need to be part of that, upper echelon, blah blah this and blah 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 that. But at the end of the day, they want to be there, and that's prestigious football. And if that's how this is heading, then we're only going to have two. That the Division One is going to end up splitting up, kind of, because you're going to have two major conferences that are going to be doing a. Well, where does Notre Dame want to win their national titles? So they want to. They are much more likely going to want to be in with the big boys, and have a much harder time getting there than they would run the roost if they stayed. If these end up breaking apart and kind of like whoever doesn't get to join those two conferences or kind of playing in another Division One, Notre Dame might win a few national titles in that. I mean, they would be very, very good. I don't think they want to be in there. In that they're going to want to play where the big money's at, and and it seems like a lot of their alumni are starting to push that way. I mean, I saw stuff from Golick, saw stuff from Brady Quinn, that it's kind of like the time is now to do it. And so it just seems like all the headwinds are falling that way. I know a lot of stuff can happen. There's sometimes some bad blood between Notre Dame and the Big Ten. So, I'm sure there's some stuff they're going to get over. But at the end of the day, money is what talks. And, the Big Ten deal is a lot bigger than what NBC is giving Notre Dame. And who knows, maybe NBC will still stay along as a TV partner, and Notre Dame will be able to fit that in there. So, but I think that's probably the next one to fall, and I don't think it's going to be as long. It's not going to go until 2025 when their contract's up, because they're going to have to start talking about it prior to that, and it might be another year. Like last year was Texas and Oklahoma, and this year was USC, UCLA. It might be next summer, and that might be Notre Dame, but I think that's probably the next big one to fall.
You got to pull someone in with them. So, I mean, who would you think? Notre Dame, Stanford, Notre Dame,
they can't do
North Carolina. Are they still out there? Have they joined the SEC yet?
No. Some of those grant of rights deals for the ACC. I mean, talk about some of the stupid stuff they ended up signing. I mean, just dumb. And, I'm sure Clemson and Florida State and Miami, like the universities, I'm sure they are talking to lawyers because they're trying to figure out how to, get out of that, because like, I don't know, like you can't be sitting around until 2035. Like right now you'll be irrelevant before that. Like,
yeah, right.
If you're not like, if these are the only two conferences that, like, this is going to really put the Big Ten in a spot now that you're still going to be four teams for a few more years. And like, there could be a year, I think there's a year or two of the playoffs where USC and UCLA and Texas and Oklahoma are now in the two conferences. And like, once those years hit, you're going to be in a real spot where if they haven't expanded the playoffs by then, that the Big Ten's getting two and the SEC's getting two. And because like, that's where all the big time teams for the most part are. And I know, you still got Clemson out there, Notre Dame's out there and stuff like that. It's going to be hard to beat those conferences when you think about, you get into an SEC championship game and Georgia and Alabama are both undefeated, or one has one loss and one's undefeated. And on the other side, you got Ohio State, USC, and like the same type of predicament. That's going to be very hard, is not only you're playing those two games as your, conference championships, but if they all end up as one lossers at the end of it, that's like you're guaranteed four playoff teams too. And like,
now, how much of that sucked? They just went into the next round like that.
I mean, but that's like, it's gonna be
a possibility for sure. Yeah, I mean, if the one loss teams win the conference championship, beating the undefeated teams in those scenarios, yeah, absolutely, it is.
Yeah, and maybe maybe they don't play each other that year, so they could be chances that they're undefeated, all four of them, and so you're definitely not leaving out the two losers at that spot. And I mean, it's a lot of possibilities and craziness. So when you're talking about who's the next to go after Notre Dame, I think they got to kind of go west. They can't do to USC and UC, even though USC is different than Nebraska. They have they have abilities to get back up into the upper echelons a lot easier than Nebraska does. They did Nebraska no favors by not trying to get them some get them some playmates out there. Like when you, it was just stupid of them to turn down Texas and Oklahoma. I don't care if Oklahoma's not a, you figure that out. You maybe you put Oklahoma on a 10-year path that, we need you guys to eventually be one of these universities, but, doesn't mean for football you can't be in right now. But it was stupid not to get those guys to Nebraska. Nebraska's been out on an island for, so long out there, and it killed them in recruiting over the last several years. And, Nebraska needs schools like they needed Texas and they needed California, which were in the heyday outside of, you get your big linemen out of, out of the farm states, Nebraska fed on that stuff out of those states out there. So it was stupid on the Big Ten's part for not giving Nebraska some playmates out there. And, California now helps them. Nebraska's going to be able to go into California and recruit. And, that's good for them. And I think you don't want to keep USC, UCLA, though, on an island out there and, get them some West Coast teams, because I still don't understand how the logistics of the other stuff is going to work outside of football. I mean, I know Gene, and I get it, a lot of those the Olympic sports, they do play a lot more on the weekends than we think and stuff like that. And I get it with COVID and stuff, with the pandemic, that there's a lot more online classes now than there used to be. So it's much more of a workable thing than it used to be. But I mean, that's still a lot, especially for those two schools. If you think about it, I mean, they're going to be traveling to the Midwest a lot.
Right.
You can kind of you can send Ohio State out there and be like, for the basketball team, and be like, well, you're going out there and you're playing both of them while you're out there, and you can get a kind of a twofer for, one trip. And, so it's a lot easier traveling from the Midwest to the West Coast because they can do a lot of stuff like that. It's gonna be nightmares for those two coming east.
Yeah.
And so you got to give them some ball players out there. So I think Stanford probably makes the most logical steps with Notre Dame because it fits the Big Ten academic standards, and it's it's a nice thing to throw to Notre Dame also. And then I would get Oregon and Washington. I mean, I think those are Oregon's arguably in the last 2 decades. I mean, during Petey's reign, they were number 2 behind Petey. They've been the top since Petey left USC. So, I mean, that's big money out there when you think about Phil Knight and Nike. So, I mean, I would definitely get Oregon. And, Washington. In my lifetime, Washington's won a national title, and they've been good. And so I think Washington, that's the Seattle market. So I would go for them, and that would be the 3 I would try to get in with Notre Dame and get the 20.
My only concern with if you're bringing in too many West Coast teams is we just talked about, there is this idea that has floated around college football that you would keep 3 people on your schedule year in, year out, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about, we want to make it so they don't have to, so they have people out there, they don't have to travel. So, I mean, when we're talking like that, I would say presumably that means that they would have another one of those pairings on their schedule. USC definitely would keep UCLA yearly. So if they kept, let's say, Oregon yearly, so they didn't have to, they had another game. Well, that doesn't leave anything else. It's Notre Dame's someone they play every year already. So
yeah, it would be Notre Dame, and and that's going to be
if that's how it goes, that's how it goes. But that would
Ohio
be
State.
My issue.
Ohio State's got some big schedules coming up. Out of they got a Texas, they got Alabama, they got Georgia, all coming up. Gene kind of talked about it the other years. He doesn't want to play USC the years he's playing those schools, and so so that's a thing too. I think right now we're talking about going away from divisions. I think if these two conferences both get up to 20, and I think 24 is the max. So 48 teams between the two would be the max. I think that they both would like to keep it closer to 20 apiece, and that's 40 teams. But they could go each up to 24. And that's going to be it. So that's why a lot of these schools that are still out there are putting resumes together, trying to figure out how they can break the ACC grants of rights because, SEC and the Big Ten aren't going past 24 apiece. So like, right. and it might be closer to 20. But I think I could see us going each kind of, honestly, where I think it's ultimately going. I could see there being 4 divisions, or I don't think we're gonna have these big divisions anymore. I think it could be like 4 smaller pods, consider kind of like what the NFL does. And I think your playoffs are gonna end up being like the top 4, top 6, maybe top 8 from each. The Big Ten and the SEC. Yeah. I mean, this is probably 5, maybe 10 years down the road, but that's going to be the upper echelon of college football. And, yes, the Big Ten plays against each other. The SEC plays against each other. They have their playoffs, and the 2 winners play for the national championship. And, that's going to be kind of it. So you'd play the other teams in your pod. You'd play then a couple other conference games to get up to like 8, 9 conference games. And then I would see you're probably going to play 2 crossover games against the SEC. And then you might play a nobody. The Big Ten all might have, whoever that chicken crap whatever is for the Big Ten. Same thing with the SEC, whether it's Division II teams, whether it's another Division I team from, the leftovers of the ACC or Big 12, maybe you play the MAC, whatever. That gives them an extra home game, which is extra revenue. I see that. And that will be your 12 games. And then you play the best 4 to 8, whatever it is for each of the 2 the conferences, whether that's 4, 6, or 8, they'll figure that out. And they have like, whether it's buys or no buys, and you have a playoff. The Big Ten schools, the top 4, top 6, top 8, whatever, they play against each other. Their champion comes out. It's the same thing with the SEC. It'll be exactly equal. If the Big Tens have 8 teams in their playoffs, the SEC is going to have 8 teams in their playoffs too. And then there's your national championship game. And then, that's because college football is going to end up looking a lot more like the NFL football in the future. And I know that's hard for a lot of people, but that's the way it's going. That's why getting these blue bloods is important. That's why getting Notre Dame is important, because it doesn't matter what these college fans say. Oh, I don't like what they're doing to this. Ohio State fans are still going to watch Ohio State football.
Right.
USC fans are still going to watch USC football. Alabama fans, Notre Dame fans. That's why the blue bloods are important, even if some of them are not at the same. That's why having a school like Nebraska is important, because, and I hope maybe Nebraska does get up to that point again in their history. They might not, but you have a fan base that is still going to watch Nebraska football regardless of who they're playing every single week. And, and that's how NFL style college football works, is that you have major fan bases will still root on for their teams as like they do now.
Very good point.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to hit on this before we hit on some of this recruiting before we get on out of here?
No, I'm good.
All right. So and it's hard to keep this straight because, it was like a lot of guys at once. We're getting ready to go on vacation. Then we are on vacation. The USC news hits. I mean, they got 6 recruits, and we've both been extremely busy with work after being back. I mean, being gone for the days, that stuff. Yeah. I mean, work is work, and you get stuff piled up on you. But so it was hard to keep track of it. Like when we were going through this list a little bit ago, I was like, man, there's 6 guys, and I think there was like 2 of them I didn't even like put up anything on. I'm like, man, those were like we were actually out at the lake and we didn't have as good cell coverage. Like,
right.
Yeah. So let's roll through these. So I think the first person to drop was that Kalen Lee, right? Is before we left.
Yeah. So cornerback out of Georgia, and top 150 player, 4-star, ranked 13th best player in the state of Georgia. So that's always a big pickup, when you can get a good player out of SEC country. You definitely need the cornerback depth. And I know you guys, people can talk about missing out on the top 5-star cornerbacks all they want since Kerry Combs has been gone. But that's a good pickup for Tim Waltman. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited. I mean, Ohio State's always gotten some really good, secondary players over the last several years. So, it's a big one for us that, it definitely, I've always said that, if these guys are good enough to be, that the coaches want them. So I have all the faith in the world of the coaches. It seems like, from what I've seen, that he's a big time player to begin with. seems like everybody was pretty stoked about him coming aboard. So definitely happy about that. Jermaine Matthews, he's committed. He's the one that's out of the Cincinnati area, right?
Yeah, he's out of Winton Woods.
So he was the one that when he got the offer like a week or two ago, and it seemed like it was pretty much definite at that point, and so that he was going to commit. So
Well, I mean, he also got an offer from LSU and Alabama after
that was
that.
that's right. That I knew he had some big offers in there, and again, that's all like hit at the same time. So yeah, that was right. So he gets the offer from Ohio State. It's like, well, he's definitely going to Ohio State, and then like the next day, it's like Alabama and LSU like then offer to him, and like, well, maybe he'll take a couple days to think about it. I don't know. I mean, that's a nice 3 offers right in a row.
Yes. He's listed as an athlete, but I think he projects as a cornerback. I mean, I think that's what he was working out at all the camps.
That's what I heard. So I'm
I think he just
assuming
plays both ways in high school, but I think he projects at the next level as a cornerback.
I'm assuming that's what they're going with him because that's everything I've heard is that he's going to be in the secondary. But you know, I mean, you've seen this time and time again with Ohio State. I mean, how many guys have they moved over to the last several years to the other side of the ball when they need a spot filled and stuff like that? So it's good to have guys that know how to play both ways because you never know when you're going to need them to fill in, and you know, he might end up being better on offense. Who knows? So I mean, definitely a big get for them. You know, I love when keeping you know, in-state kids in when you know, they're good enough to be given offers and stuff that you end up keeping them. But yeah, yeah, freaking Alabama and LSU coming in there trying to take that away. That's just crazy. Big list. Talk about getting 3 offers in the 2 or 3 days like that. I mean that that's nuts. That's something to you know, tell people about that. You know, you get to brag about that and like, yeah, I'm framing those letters because I got them all at once. So that's
All he had to
pretty
do was work out. Once he finally got to show these guys what he was about at camp, he got the offers.
yeah. Calvin Sampson Hunt, he's the one that was at committed to Tech, right? Texas Tech, and then
Yes.
when he got the Ohio State offer and like all the crystal balls started rolling in that he was gonna, you know, go to Ohio State, decommits, and then it's pretty much, is it a couple hours later or is it the next day? I can't remember. But it's pretty fast.
I thought it was pretty much almost
isn't it like yeah.
Yeah, I think he
like
decommitted and then committed to Ohio State like the next set. I mean, probably a couple hours.
I think it was a couple hours, but it was pretty fast. It was all in the same day. So he another big one, you know, flipping a kid from Texas Tech. So seems like the staff really likes him. You got more information on him. What position is he again?
He's a cornerback too. So I mean, they're really solidifying the depth in the cornerback class right now,
which is important because that's like one of the. I mean, it's definitely right now in the secondary is a little nerve wracking with the depth. I would say the secondary corners first and then the safeties, but kind of both. And then the offensive lineman. That's like kind of where the really especially on the tackles, that's really nerve wracking where their depth starting next year is starting the lineup. So, you know, that's definitely important that some of those needs get addressed, and they end up doing, because we'll be talking about alignment here in a second. So they were able to at least address, you know, part of those needs too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so they definitely got to the corners. So we'll talk about then Miles Walker. We'll do him next. He's the offensive lineman. Definitely again, that's kind of been my concerns over the last few weeks, has been especially offensive tackle and corner, and then next is safety. Is that I just, you know, some of the depth, that's where it seems like they lost a few guys in the offseason, and that you know, that they just have not been able to fill those spots back up. And so I'm glad what they're doing with the secondary. I definitely want to see them pulling at least one more tackle in this class that after Walker, that would be, I think, very important. You know, Fry coming in as late as he did, you know, we lost out on a lot of the bigger guys. You know, we ended up getting Montgomery, which was seemingly was trending away from us, but it seems like all the other ones that were possibly trending towards us, you know, have now, you know, we ended up losing or have trended away from us. So you know, I think I'm nothing to be worried about. I saw some people on Twitter starting to get a little freaked out about that. I'm just like, I think they need to have a good season, and Fry needs to show that he's competent as a coach, and I think that corrects itself after a year. It was kind of the same stuff we saw kind of with Alford. It took Alford a minute to really get his feet going in there, and then or maybe not. I don't remember.
Yeah,
But
J.K. Dobbins his first year.
I think Dobbins was kind of. I think Dobbins was definitely a pro Ohio. I mean, it would have been hard to really pull him away from Ohio State.
I mean, he didn't even
a lot of the work
before recruiting, so
a lot of the work was done prior to that.
Yeah.
But after that, it seemed like it took Alford a minute to really kind of get his foot in the into some of these recruits.
Yeah.
And he's doing fine.
I think he had the one unlucky class where it's like, he's Bijan Robinson's number one, and Ohio State, they're way up there and I'm not, a kid from California that ended up going over to, I think it was Georgia. I don't know. I can't think of his name right now, but we were way up with a ton of guys. And it's just like at the 11th hour, everyone decided to go somewhere else. So I didn't, that was, Alford's inability to close. Stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next one is defensive lineman Jason Moore. He committed to the Buckeyes, it looks like on July 10th. So another big defensive line get there. I mean, that's kind of like, you're just so used to that now after the Larry Johnson years that you always know you're pulling good defensive linemen. Definitely looks like he's going to be a nice addition to Ohio State. We were back by then, so I got to at least see a little bit of his just some of his high school just stuff that people were posting and stuff like that. So that looks like it's going to be that's a nice get for Ohio State. I'm excited for it. And then the last one came today, and that's was it Jelani Thurman? Yeah, Jelani Thurman, big time tight end that really started kind of breaking for us over the last few days. That it seemed like that he was that everything was trending really, really nice, and two big tight ends in this class. So
yeah,
they still amaze me how they're able to pull in the tight ends that they pull in. I mean, I won't lie. I mean, one of these years they're actually going to be. I know you can't highlight the tight ends as much as you want. They get the receivers and running backs they get. It's kind of hard, the beginning of the tight ends to pop up. It's like, man, these tight ends still come here. they still have no problem recruiting tight ends, but I mean, which is great. Don't get me wrong. So, maybe one of these years they'll throw a few more balls towards the tight ends, and that will solidify why they're able to recruit them so well. But good for them.
It sounds like he's a bigger freak athlete than what Rucker was coming in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's some of the stuff. Yeah, I have not watched any of his video yet. I haven't gotten an opportunity, but listen to some of the guys that talk about him. Some of the recruiting specialists, like, man, yeah, he sounds like it's just a true freak, and so I'm looking forward to seeing him play once he gets here. So
I'm pretty sure he won MVP for tight ends at some Under Armour camp that they just had. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah, I mean, the kid definitely. I mean, nothing bad that I've heard about him, and that's just huge get that you don't think you would get from SEC country tight end.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely like where they went this year with tight ends again. Sometimes I don't know how they do it, but I mean, whatever, they do it. So, but yeah, so I mean, yeah, so a busy 2 weeks in recruiting, and then right prior to that, you have the all the receivers falling. So I mean, talk about just a crazy June and July. So the next one, I think it seems like Caleb Downs will be in the next week, maybe or two. It seems like everything's trending Alabama right now with that, but who knows? I mean, it seems like even a couple of the guys that have picked Alabama to win them out, they've all said that Ohio State is still the strictest. That is pretty much the chief competition right now, and so in the era of NIL, I'm not going to say that we're out of it yet. Some guys some of the recruiting guys, Whitfong over at 247, usually he has a pretty good track record once he puts in a crystal ball that that's usually where it goes. So right now I'm gonna just go with that. I'm assuming Caleb Downs is going to Alabama, and I will be pleasantly surprised if he ends up choosing Ohio State at the end of the day.
So. Right, that's where we're at right now with that. And Who else? I know there's another one. Oh, Tackett Curtis, linebacker from Louisiana. He's still in the mix for, I think, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and USC. I think most people project he's going to go with the Buckeyes. However, on three, he said USC recently, and I know some people got all worked up because of that. I just tell people, calm down. There's not. Let's not get worked up over anything.
You got a great recruiting class, and right now, I mean, you lose kids to USC. I mean, what do you want? I mean, we've beaten Alabama out for kids. I mean, this
Right.
stuff. I mean, this is you are literally in the mix for these big time kids, and so unfortunately, I mean, yeah, I would love.
Unfortunately, you're the spot that has the worst weather.
Yeah,
That's in the mix.
I mean, I would love that. I think there's a big opportunity there with that kid with Curtis because he's not got any SEC schools high. It's between us, Wisconsin, and USC. So I have a lot of confidence that we could pull him in. It's USC is a big fight, but I think we could do it. A lot of these bowls. He went to Georgia today or yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And I saw some Buckeye fans get upset about that, but like, man, when you got those kids at that level, and you're surrounded by these SEC schools that have won national titles, it's not easy to get them out of. I mean, if you think the roles were reversed, I mean, if the talent level in the country was still in the north, I mean, so much of our country demographics has moved towards the south. If Michigan, Pennsylvania, I mean, Ohio is still there, even though it's losing population, but it's still there. Columbus has gained population though. So, I mean, we're lucky about that. If you think about if Michigan and Pennsylvania was still at where they were at, many, many moons ago, and that's where all the best players were at, Ohio State would be looking really good, and Penn State and Michigan would be up, and they would be kind of back in. I know Michigan's coming off a good season, horrible recruiting this year, but that's a different story. Ohio State would be.
I think they've had a decent couple of weeks. I think they've picked up a couple kids.
I think they have to. We were away, but still, I mean, it's getting a little late now. But you know what I'm saying. If the talent shift was to the north, this would be Ohio State and Notre Dame that would be winning these kids, and then not necessarily Alabama. It would be hard for Alabama and LSU and Georgia to come north and pull kids out of the north. Well, that's kind of where you're at right now. So, like,
right.
And Florida's a different state. I mean, I know everybody gets their fair share of luck at times in Florida, but Florida is Florida, especially once you get south from Tampa, Orlando south. A lot of those kids are transplants from other places in the country, and so
and Florida kids never know what they want to do either.
Yeah, I mean, you can pull kids out of Florida, but they literally might have lived most of their life in Ohio, and their family decided before they got into high school that they're moving to Florida because it's just better weather. It happens.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
All right, anything else you want to hit on recruiting before we get on out of here?
No, I'm good. I think we touched on everything.
All right. Again, highly recommend listening to the beginning of the show. If you want big time fishing trip, Reindeer Lake Lodge. Get us on out of here, John.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping in tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.